Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Knights of the Alternate Table, and we're watching part 2 of What If Hitler Was Killed in 1923. So I hope you guys enjoy. I have gotten a new mic, so hopefully my audio is a little bit better and more louder for you guys to hear. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. If you haven't seen part 1, there's an IQ card up there that you can click on to enjoy and have a good one. And we're going to begin right about now. Thank you. So, Wallonia and Flanders would quickly divide into a Belgian civil war. Meanwhile, France would lose some land on the Maginot, and Czechoslovakia and Hungary would keep on getting smaller and smaller. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union would be moving closer to Warsaw, and the Corsica invasion of Sicily would continue going stronger and stronger, while Africa is slowly being taken over by the Italians and British and Portuguese by the Bay. The Allies would quickly start to destroy the Comintern, mainly moving through Belgium and slowly collapsing the French line. In Africa, more and more land would be taken, as well as in Corsica, because French troops would have to retreat to defend the homeland. Meanwhile, Poland would continue holding out as long as they can. Czechoslovakia would almost be completely destroyed, while Hungary would also be slowly eaten up and devoured bit by bit. The monarchs of Germany and Sweden once again would become allies, as this was very likely, especially with Prince Wilhelm II's relationship to the Swedish king. This would then create a nice alliance for even more troops to come in and hopefully destroy the Comintern completely. Sweden would also join because of Soviets' increasing aggression towards Finland and wanting to defend their Nordic brother. Now they would begin fighting on actual French land instead of foreign occupied nations. Meanwhile, Corsica would be also invaded from the north as well as being from the south, as they had no more troops to defend, and Italy would keep on being taken more and more. Czechoslovakia would be completely destroyed. Meanwhile, all of Hungary's lands that they advanced into would also be taken up for Hungary's last defense. And the Soviet Union would keep on slowly advancing into Poland. Algeria would be completely taken by the Italians. Meanwhile, Corsica would also be completely taken. In the south of France, Italy would gain more and more land. Meanwhile, the Maginot Line would begin to suffer from German troops, and Belgian troops would advance in the north. The Poles would start gaining land against the Soviets and starting to actually free their country from the communist rule. But with all the troops from Central Europe, it was only a matter of time before the two nations collapsed. Meanwhile, France would completely surrender, and the Soviet Union would hold on to parts of Poland, but also have their own troops start to slowly invade and retreat, going a scorched earth policy, as they have in history for a long, long time. This would drain the Allies' troops slowly, but they would eventually start to make more and more land. With the lack of Soviet resources and food, they would have. Meanwhile, Japan would start to attack Pearl Harbor, which would make the Americans mad. And since Japan hasn't attacked any other nation or is allied with any other nation, it would be just Japan versus America. This would be a long and bloody war, and the Americans would have to slowly hop island to island, but would eventually win and destroy Japan entirely. With millions upon millions of Americans dead, Japan would be defeated. As the Americans did not have refuge from German scientists, there would be no atomic bombs or atomic war. They would have to slowly invade the Japanese mainland, and once they did, it would be chaos. There would be buildings burning and everything would be destroyed, to leave the new democratic Japan left with the wreckage of a former nation. Meanwhile, democracy would be put upon China and Korea, and they would quickly join the US into helping them with all of their endeavors, basically becoming puppets or close allies. China would unify with US help and therefore become democratic, as without the Soviet Union supporting the Chinese Republic, democracy would take hold. Meanwhile, with the slow burning bridge and burning the earth, the Allies would slowly make their way into Soviet territory, with the siege of Leningrad being very bloody for the Soviets, and they would be getting close to Warsaw. With this, the Soviets would have no choice to surrender, and would quickly try and hope to keep as much land as they possibly could. The Soviet Union would then completely collapse, though the treaty would not be ratified, as there would still be guerrilla fighters trying to keep the communist dream alive, though they would be slowly taken away one by one, and the Allies would become a dominant force in Europe and in the world, with monarchies ruling all over. This would have a huge effect on the world, as now there is no longer a communist force, but a monarchist force. Meanwhile, in Russia, Tsar Nicholas II's nephew would become Tsar Alexander III. He would be put into power with the dismay of the people, as they just fought to get rid of a king, and the communist revolution would still be alive. Though Alex III was a good ruler all in all, as he listened to his people, and soon they would begin to slowly support him and accept his rule as the Tsar. Germany would annex the rest of Austria, as well as the Czech Republic and parts of Hungary. Poland would do the same, only with Slovakia and parts of Hungary. Italy would gain more land in southern France, as well as taking all of France's African colonies. Belgium couldn't get anything else, because they were already under a fragile state after that civil war, with the Flanders living over the Wallonians as an oppressive government. Germany would also take Alsace-Lorraine. Now, a Cold War state would begin, versus the monarch powers in Europe versus the democratic powers in North America and Asia. This would quickly overthrow into sort of a Cold War, because without the power of nukes and the countries already fighting such bloody and miserable wars, they would not even risk trying to go to war with another, as their populations were already so depleted. Another war would break out in Italy, a civil war, with the North supporting the king and the South supporting Mussolini. Corsica would take this time to declare independence from Italy, with the promise of the North that if they helped them invade Sardinia, they would accept their declaration of independence. Corsica would accept and therefore become an independent nation. The invasion of Sardinia would begin. Meanwhile, Rome would fall to the north, and Italy would be left between the north and basically Naples. They would try and hold as long as they can, but they simply could not. So they would be forced to surrender, succeeding all Italian land to the king beside Corsica, which would now be an independent state. Monarchies would now rule supreme in Europe, without any other power besides the fascist Spanish to really conquer them. With all of these monarchies in the world, especially in Europe, this would lead to a new age of imperialism, of each power trying to lock down their new colonies and try and hold as much land as they possibly could. The only powers would be democratic, and they would try and stop the spread of imperialism, of monarchy, and to spread freedom. Mainly with the US versus the UK, China versus Russia, Japan versus Germany, and Korea versus Italy, to try and gain as much land and influence as power possible, with the US and Britain competing for world domination. China and Russia for who could have the biggest military on each other's borders, Japan and Germany for who can export the most stuff, and Italy and Korea as the countries that could support their own faction the most. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. So I can tell while I'm editing this that this is a really good mic and really good audio, so I hope you guys do enjoy it, and hopefully you can hear me and watch my videos longer. Just remember to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoy this type of content. And yeah, I'll see you around for my next video, which will probably come out on April 1st, so enjoy that, and have a good one. Bye. Wow, you stuck around to the end title screen. On your right is a video that's best for you, and on your left is a video that is part 1, and if you got far without watching part 1, then congrats. Make sure to say potato so I know who's watching, and goodbye!